Good evening, how y'all doing? I'm going to give you just a brief introduction that might be helpful. I wrote this book, Living with Thunder. It's quite a few pages. Alzheimer's Untold, a family's journey to help those with younger onset realize that it's just not a short-term situation. This is my first little attempt at trying to actually put a person, aka myself, with what I'm trying to say. I've been trying to post on Facebook and all these other social medias for a couple years now. My son John, who's in this book actually, is videotaping this. Now what I want to talk to you about is essentially that you have voodoo medicine. I probably know a lady over there in Louisiana, if you give her a couple live chickens and a fruitcake, she put the voodoo on you. I don't know if it'll solve the problem with Alzheimer's or not, but it's not for sissies. I hope you don't have nightmares after this, but that's not really what I'm trying to do here. We're going to see what happens. I got a lot to say. If anybody knows me, knows that I have a lot to say. What I would like to share with you is, you're going to have to sit down for this one. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, sit down. One of the things I've been doing lately is studying the brain. Here's what I would like to share with you. We got all these doctors and psychiatrists and all these kind of folks running around all over the world, and they have answers. You have big pharmaceutical companies. There's all kind of gimmicks out there. You're going to be in it. You might as well know what you're getting into, and then that's what this book helps you deal with. It covers being able to survive caregiving. In my case, it was a matter of surviving 15 years of chaos, raising children through dealing with Medicaid, Medicare, and all of these types of things. So that's been my journey since April of 2020 when I finished this book, to try to help other people realize that they can survive this. That leads me to the next thing, and that's sort of like my commercial, and that's a cruise for caregivers. It's the most stressful thing you'll ever do in your life is to caregive for somebody else. And as we age, or even just life in general, what you'll find is sooner or later you'll either be cared for or you'll become a caregiver. It's just life. And with Alzheimer's, the sad, there's two parts to that. Those that want to know about if they have Alzheimer's, or they're going to get it, and then those that have it. I'm not sure if I'd ever want to know if I have it. Or if I did want to know, then I would want to take care of all my business and affairs first, and then not worry about it anymore. Because in the end, you don't know anything about it anyway. So back to the commercial. Caregiving is very important. If you can get a chance to take your loved one on a vacation, it will make a difference in your life. And that's what this is all about. A cruise that takes people from all sorts of stages, be they in a wheelchair with MS to Alzheimer's, and it is brought to you by Elite Cruises and Vacations. And their number is 888-826-6836. You can get that information off my webpage or go to Elite Cruises and Vacation. And Miss Kathy can help you with that. I highly recommend it. What I decided to do is I just study for myself about the brain, because it makes no sense to me. We give and give and give to all these big companies and nonprofits and the government, and they're all doing a good job on researching, but we're really no closer than we were 20, 30 years ago to solving this thing. I decided to go on a quest for myself, and I'd like to share a little bit with you tonight. And if you've been following me on my Living with Thunder page, then you know for several weeks I've been putting a term about the brain on my webpage, and maybe you have comments. In any case, I have a theory, and it hasn't wavered since I penned this in my book about what I think the problem is. It's really like the last frontier. We don't know anything about the brain. We know more about COVID and how to give somebody a shot and quarantine them and wear masks and all these other things than we know about the workings of the brain. And I find that very interesting. So here's what I want to share with y'all tonight. Now, if I do another one of these things, I can't say, but this is what I will tell you, and that is, it's a water problem. And if you think about it, or you know anything about the brain, you'll know that I'm right. And I'm right because it is a water problem. This right here, this represents CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. This is approximately 500 milliliters of water, okay? CSF is what circulates around your brain, and it cushions your brain if you're playing sports or in a car accident or you do jumping jacks or whatever, but it's a shock absorber, so to speak, that surrounds your brain. So this much is not in your brain, in your skull or spinal cord at all at one time. Only about 150 milliliters is in your brain at one time. But this much gets produced throughout a 24-hour period. It's clear like water, and it starts in the left and the right ventricle, and it also is produced in the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle. So these are cavities in your brain, essentially, that extracts glucose is essentially extracted from the bloodstream, and it fills these ventricles, and they get circulated throughout your body, and from the left and the right down through the second and the third and the fourth, and then it can go down to your down through your spinal cord, and then it will come back up to your brain. Then it gets reabsorbed at the top of your skull and goes into your jugular vein. How do we test this stuff? It's clear. It's really the blood of the brain is what this stuff is. Just follow me. This is CSF. There's not any way to mine it unless you get a lumbar puncture. And when you take it out of your spinal cord, you can cause problems such as headaches or a leak that never stops. I would compare it to something like trying to take transmission fluid out of a running vehicle, something like that. It's just going to go all over the place. It's probably not a good idea. We don't have the technology yet to just extract this like we do blood or urine or anything like that. My question is, if this is surrounding the brain, this fluid is surrounding the brain, then why is it that if you get imagery of the brain, it starts off like this and then it just gets eaten up until there's nothing else? That's essentially what Alzheimer's does. It's like an onion that slowly gets peeled away. What would cause that? I think the Rh factor in the CSF is the cause of it. How do we test that? Well, I am still studying on this, but I believe the theory is correct, what I have. There's all kind of factors that generate and reabsorb the CSF. But if you have a high concentration of any kind of acidity in fluid, then what you're going to get is what we have with Alzheimer's, a slow deterioration of the brain. How do you stop it? That's the age-old question. What I did in the cruise that I went on for Elite Cruises, I gave a talk, about a 45-minute talk, on my 4 principles of common sense. Although we can't readily extract this fluid and even know what the real chemical makeup, if we could trend this information, if we could trend it, then we could determine the input and the output of what could be. So if you got somebody healthy, then you can determine what those minerals or the exact level of the different chemicals should be in this thing. So what I would like to say is that the best that we can do right now is we can check your blood. Your blood can be checked, your urine, and if we could get the blood going in and then the blood going out from the jugular, that side of it, then that's a good way that we can trend it. And I believe that we create a giant international database to collect this information, then we'll be well on the way, light years ahead of where we are right now. I know in Europe there's doing some of this stuff. It needs to be prevalent. We need to be able to track medical records from the cradle to the grave. Some people would disagree with that, but why not? You don't have to be personal with it, but if we can track this information, if you have this information on you at age 20, you know what your baseline is of your body at that age. Not that you'll be 20 in 20 years, but you'll have essentially a baseline of your body as you get older. And if something comes amiss, like genetically speaking, you may have hereditary DNA markers, then possibly what could be, you can go back to your baseline and or compare it to other records all over the world. So what I want to say is I have this talk that I give. It's a 45-minute talk, and it's called Common Sense. If you do these 4 principles that I'd like to share with you, then you have a good chance of staving off Alzheimer's. And that's stress management, managing your stress, exercise, at least 20 minutes a day. The third one, SCN. SC is stress management. E is education. N is nutrition. You are what you eat. And C is continuous learning. If you notice, I'm not trying to sell you some magic pill. I'm saying you can do it yourself. And it doesn't cost you anything except for start thinking healthy. Start thinking and not relying on some magic pill or some magic, I don't know, program. Just start off small. Drink plenty of water, because if you think about it, this is 500 milliliters of fluid that your body generates. So are you drinking this much water at least a day, or this much liquids at least a day? It's got to come from somewhere. What are you putting in your body? So that's really all I have tonight, though. This is my first shot at this. So I want to thank my cameraman, John, for doing this. I saw this today and just thought about the things that I've been studying about the CSF. Good night.